Okay, so if we're ready to commence, that's pretty much the agenda that I have suggested that we go through. So let me just talk people through it. In the first instance, this needs to be, I think, a debate about the content, not the people who might sponsor it. I think that's quite important from us going forward. Everyone has their vote. This is intended to be bringing together people who have either special interest or close to it, and particularly those, and thanks Kevin and Henny for lending actually have some electrical engineering background on which to give us some advice and guidance. And my desire is that what will come out of here regarding metering and going forward represents a consensus if we can get to that. I think we did last time back in February, and that was great, and having the confidence to move forward as a consensus recommendation for the estate. If we can get to the same again today, that would also be great. So at this point in time, the purpose is to review and to recommend electricity metering solution for the Wedderwill and its homeowners. So just covering the background, I and Steve started debating this back two or so years ago. My own perception of it is that time of use metering is the future of metering because of the way the energy world is decentralizing the production of energy, and then the price at which it is produced at one time and the price at which it's consumed at another time becomes problematic from an equity perspective. This was first learned 20 or more years ago in California when they started getting into renewables, and the logic that you can just run a meter backwards became very painful, because when you want to consume it in the middle of the day, when there was lots of cheap electricity, when you want to produce it or solar in the middle of the day, let Johan in. So when you want to produce it cheap in the day, but when you want to consume it at night, it's expensive. And if you ever get into any differential and essentially have an energy marketplace, then the ability to the mismatch of oh yeah, and I did admit you. Let me answer. Yeah, is it coming through? You're joining. Sure.
There you go.
Okay.
Thank you. Apologies that I'm joining a bit late, guys.
No problem. It's great that you're able to join. What I was just covering was the context of the meeting. This is about the content, not about the people who might have brought the ideas to the table, and that we need to get to the original reason for this becoming an interest subject for Steve and I was the mismatch of pricing and equity of energy on the estate. And then last year the estate had to absorb close to 250,000 Rand worth of penalty costs, which I originally thought was just a fixed penalty, but it turns out that about 100,000 of that was a fixed penalty application, and a further 150,000 of it was a variable charge of consuming electricity above the threshold. Why that's important is that I think many of us thought that the problem was just the penalty charges, the fixed penalty charges coming through. And it's not. We are at a threshold level of consuming energy, and we actually need to it's not just the penalty charges. We actually do need to bring it down because there's quite a lot of consumption happening above the fixed threshold, even if it's not always resulting in penalty charges because of the way it's consumed above 250k. In other words, the price of electricity, once we consume above 250k, is a lot higher at a variable level than the rate that we're selling it at.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Thanks. No, I'm okay, thanks.
And that's complicated even further by the winter high energy charge.
Yeah.
Because the demand charge goes up, I think it calculates 650% for those 3 months.
Yeah.
Which is, so if one can actually just get that under control, I would imagine some of our costs can come down.
So what's been cool about energy in Wedderwill since its inception is the signing up for this rural non-local authority night safe tariff, which has all given us mostly very cheap electricity, and to lose that would be extremely painful. I mean, I understand that some of the farms in putting in solar have been taken off that tariff, and it's ended up doubling their electricity bill. So retaining access to the rural night safe tariff is extremely desirable, provided that we can keep ourselves below the threshold. And so that ended up, as at least my understanding of it, that was a key element of the strategy, is to retain access to the tariff while limit the risk of the penalty tariff, both fixed and variable.
So, would it guarantee that we stay on that tariff if we don't exceed?
There are no guarantees about the future. I mean, I'm very fond of this conversation. Most got asked me in the context of being a banker, when people say, like, what should you invest in, or what's the best product to put your money with? If I really had a crystal ball, which I don't, none of us do, so there is no promise that Eskom will retain its tariff structure. There are huge markers out there that they are strongly interested in moving to time of use tariffs. In fact, I think about half of the tariffs in their tariff book are already time of use tariffs, and I'm aware it was recently made public. I should actually share the link that National Treasury voted the appropriation of I think some billions of rands to replace metering in municipality.
But I think one could perhaps assume then that there's every indication that Eskom will change the tariff structure, and we might.
And for us to manage a blended structure of time of use
Yes,
will become much more difficult.
yes.
Yes.
How is that threshold calculated?
It was allocated to the estate when the estate was set up by.
Number of inhabitants? Or
What was the formula?
I don't know the formula, and one would need to go back to Eskom to ask them. And this is my take on it: the willingness to go and engage with, say, we want an increased energy allocation, always puts at risk access to our tariff.
I'm just wondering how.
I sort of like, there's the sleeping dogs up.
I contacted them, and in fact, I said, what is required for us to actually up that NMD? Well, then they're going to review a whole tariff structure. They start digging too deep.
Yes.
I just dropped it because we would not be back on the tariff structure we are now.
Yeah.
And you have to have a year record, because what happens is if you exceed that NMD, we were at 250. We went up last year to 360. It stayed at 360 for another 11 months until we could prove we could bring it down. And it's now down after. So it's
So where are we
just,
sitting now, Grant?
I think we're sitting at it's certainly under the 360. I think it's 315 or something, but it's over 250 now.
And at least from my perspective, the least that we can interfere with what happens inside people's homes, the better. That's the last thing I want to get involved in. If people really want to get extra access to energy and are prepared to pay more, then ultimately there should be answers to that,
Charles, can I just
but not on the basis of someone else. What I call the free rider problem. In other words, just because you want to consume means that the excess energy gets split across everyone else.
Well, load shedding, that's now hopefully something overpassed. What trend do we pick up these last couple of months, which was winter, and what was the maximum demand during this period?
I haven't added in the most recent 2 months. We're always a month behind, but I have skimmed the bills, and there are still penalty charges coming through.
Exceeding the 2.
Yeah.
Even though there's no load
Not
shedding.
the most recent one, funny enough. The most recent one we were under. In fact, the most recent 2. So, by comparison to this time last year, we actually have come down quite a bit. But I think so. We're waiting for the. But we had, unfortunately, in both those areas, we had at least 1 week of non-ESCOM related power outages. So it distorts the whole account, which is
Charles, just a confirmation, because we currently then we are getting paid a flat charge, basically a summer charge and a winter charge. We don't getting currently charged by time of usage. That's what you were saying. ESCOM just over winter, and then three, as I understand it. There's a summer charge, a winter charge, and then an excess charge if you breach.
Yeah, that's my understanding of it. Yeah.
And originally this whole process was to, as you were saying, first of all was to, the purpose was to keep us below the caps, that we don't pay the excess or require a bigger pipe. I mean, and just keep increasing the cost. That was the first intention of this group. And then secondly is then to say, okay, get the tariff charging correct, whatever it is currently, and then what we expect in future. That'll become an issue when you got time of day usage. That becomes a big issue if we just overstand the tariff, and that is something that we expect we will be confronted with in the future at some point at least.
Yeah. And plus the third element that has now come on the table over the last couple of weeks, that 70% of the meters on the estate do have to be replaced. We now have clarity on that. So those are the three ingredients, which essentially presents the estate with 2 options, either to continue with prepaid or to look at smart metering. When I say smart metering, I've actually come to the conclusion that it's just not done metering. It's just not done metering. How clever it really is.
Charles, I just want to, whether there is a fourth component as well. Personally, I would want it, but everybody with solar, where you would be able to feed into our little small grid, and the HOA can make some money out of that, if that can be done. Because you've got 20 already, 20, 30, how many people with panels in the estate. Many of them provide, specifically in summer during the day. I mean, obviously there will be usage. If that can be feedback and homeowners buy it back at the lower tariff than what they sell it, then there's an extra income stream for the homeowners in. So I think there is a fourth component to it, that one is a subsidiary to the others.
For clarity on that, Johan, it's not in the financial numbers at this point in time, and the reason for that is that if we were to just enable the residents who have surplus solar to feed back into the Wedderwill grid without another change, and the change that we need to put in place is something just this side of the Wedderwill side of our metering that prevents feedback into the Eskom grid. Because once we start feeding back into the Eskom grid, even if it's unintentionally, we put at risk our tariff. So we haven't at this point in time, and we would need to deal with our electricians, our estate electricians, saying we need a solution that puts almost like a electrical block that stops us feeding back. My estimate at this point in time is that the likely benefit that is on the table of wheeling within the estate may well be 10 or 20,000 a month in the summer months. In the winter months, yeah, not so much. My guess it's worth about 100,000 a year, but and how we would trade the benefit of that with the residents is not in any commercial numbers at this point. So good marker, but the value piece, don't know.
I think the city of Cape Town permitted, but you get paid back about 1/3 of what you get charged if you consume it. So
fancy meter costs 15 grand.
no, they're down to 6 now. They brought it down
Oh,
for
okay.
single phase. Yeah, for single phase.
Okay.
You may have a situation here in that park, smaller. Our neighbour, he's got panels there and he's not sharing with them. So that current could be solved. You could divert to
Or it could reduce the tariff we have to charge people for buying units.
that's worked out.
But that's an area, Johan, that you'll probably have to help us the most. Because once we start having to deal with multiple supply and demand and difference between midday prices and morning and evening prices, this will become complicated. But that's your strong suit. We may well happen to you at that point in time.
But the big question is just the metering system that we look at. What can it do? I mean, that's obviously the current ones can't at all do it. You can do it, but it double charges you, because when I put it in solar, when you feed it back, it actually it takes away units. It's so I mean the current system can't, but that would be just in the pot if we look at a new metering system. I mean, obviously, I think that's the most pressing issue, because we're sitting with November coming, and it just seems, as you say, your meter is not smart. It's just not dumb. It seems that it is dumb to just replace the old archaic meters that's not going to be functional for where we need to go. I think that's why everybody's here today. Okay, thanks.
So 2 options are on the table. So there's an option of retaining the prepaid, and I have not been able to get that much information, but I'll show you what I have from something that's been pursued to try and, what I understand is, contain the battery charging of solar systems using a controller mechanism sourced from Green Sun.
But now, Charles, am I correct that the Green Sun proposal would actually limit how we charge our batteries, even off our own panels? Because when Steve came up with this proposal last year, that we actually reduced the charge rate to 20 amps.
It affects your TV
It
bill.
affects
We
you.
always
But-
change it if we charge from the panels, we
Yeah.
can put it up.
Yeah, but
So-
on the Victron, you can actually do it on the inverter side, so it doesn't affect the battery charging. Okay, so that can be done. I'm not too sure of that.
No, mine definitely. If I push it down to 20 amps,
It just,
it takes 3 times as long to
No,
actually charge the
that's not
battery.
what you want.
So we're not actually getting the benefit of our panels.
But what system do you have?
It's a no-brainer then.
What system do you have, Graham?
Sorry, what?
What inverter do you have?
We've got a lot of people have got Sunset. Most people because they were.
I've also got Sunstick, but Sunstick you can have I mean, your charging rate from the grid and from your panels is different. It's different settings.
Can be done.
Because I've got a diode which is Sunsync, basically replica, and you set your grid charge rate is low, and I mean obviously it worked because we could see what happened after we had our week of electric disruption. I don't think that's the biggest pressing issue is to control charging of the batteries. If everybody is at 20 amps, you can set. I mean, from the panels you can set it as high as you want. So it's definitely two different settings. On a something will be as an Adaya and yeah, Victron definitely. So your statement is that I think what we've seen the last two times we had electricity cuts just by the settings on the people's inverters, which definitely did change something. Point number one, and secondly, by the management of the geysers did change it. We didn't see that spike. I mean, Graham, that if you look at the bill, we never saw that huge spike we had previously just after it came in for 2 sessions after the electricity come back. It's been managed brilliantly just
The
through that
last
of those sections.
below the AMD, and we actually didn't have the big spike. Yeah.
So in a sense,
It worked.
Yeah, maybe people.
Yes.
But I think to make it smart meters is you replace the meter with a human being. And the fact people must change their behavior. So instead of doing vacuuming or running dishwasher, washing machine at night after you've had dinner, rather run during the day when you've got sunshine, then you use your solar panels, and instead of using and pushing up the demand at night time.
yeah, because I mean, and obviously, I mean, if you add to that is, I mean, as you say, by a human computer, the human computer, but the only way you're going to do that if you charge them, as you're saying, if we have a metering system that charges differently for time of use within the estate that fits what we need to do. So I think that is definitely, because if you start paying more when you're using at night, when we have issues, whatever, then people will change the behavior. And if you don't, you pick up the costs kind of thing. So yeah, that is, we're not, and when Charles coming back to where people are with you intrusive into the householders, that is a difficult one. I mean, we've talked about it last time as well, to put that your geysers are controlled centrally. That is, if we can measure people correctly and let them pay if they don't do that, if they don't manage their geysers, then they pay more. I mean, that's the first. Then you don't have intrusions into people's way they want to live, and if they want to pay, then they pay. Just everybody don't share it. That's where I'm coming from. There, rather than being the same place, being big daddy and controlling everything. You don't want that, but you want a fair system. So
Actually, I believe have a similar thing with water in terms of the raw water allocation that we have from the dam. That everyone has an allocation, and some people like to use more than their allocation, which is not that actively managed, provided that Wedderwill on the whole is staying below what it's allowed in total. And essentially the same logic, I think, is being thought of in the Enlight proposal, as we really don't care. I mean, yes, there would be geyser controllers for those people who have standard geyser elements, but the idea is if they actually want to manually turn their geyser on, and it's outside their schedule of when they're scheduled to be, and if there is spare capacity, it would allow them to turn it on. It would be only if it was taking us too close to the estate threshold penalty that it would say, likely, but no, this is a lot of other cost that comes with this. So this is the proposal that was sent to me on request from Andy and from GreenSun, which I understand is a microgrid controller and would amount to an extent to us handing over some of the control and the pricing to GreenSun for our energy use and pricing.
You ran 97 a kilowatt hour.
Well, I mean,
And we've got a 2 rand.
I mean, this is the brochure that I got from them as their proposal, and
We're way under that. And
But Graham, remember that 397 is if they've got a big battery bank somewhere.
But are they going to provide all the capital to put in the battery back?
Don't know.
That proposal.
as
We
I
don't
said,
know.
I've asked for commercials on this beyond this proposal and not had a reply.
But now we've all equipped ourselves with very expensive systems, our own batteries, and they're basically replicating what
Yeah.
we've already got.
And what Steve tells me is that this system talks to Victron inverters, and Victron has an open API around their inverters for these sorts of things and the related battery management and other stuff. SunSync explicitly tells me do not have an open API, and from his understanding, their strategy is not to open their API. And I understand also that about 80% of us have SunSync inverters. So
So for a new estate, that's an excellent,
it might be an excellent
Option.
Yeah.
but not for one that's been going for 25 years and we've all already invested in our systems already.
Yeah, the cat got out the bag of investing in solar, some years back already.
Charles, have you spoken? GreenSun runs Longlands, as I understand, the electricity distribution.
They run Norlands, you said.
Longlands. They're at Longlands at close to Stellenbosch. They're by what's that area? Because a friend of mine, because I remember a friend of mine stays there, and originally he proposed we talk to GreenSun because they smart metering and you pay a monthly, but I don't know if they do the batteries and all the rest of it there. So, and how effective that is, because I mean, they didn't tell you which other estate they're involved with. That one can have a chat with those guys.
They provided no references with this proposal.
Because I think that's very important that we just understand exactly how but from my understanding, it works because they got time of day charge and all the rest. I don't think they're on our rural ESCOM tariff structure. They are on time of use structure, and their system works that way. Whether they do all the rest there is what they're proposing. Is I don't know. I don't think they control the users and the rest, as far as I understand. But that is maybe. Well, I'll just confirm again if that is the case. Then we just have a chat with their. I mean, I think it's important to have a chat with their homeowners just to understand what their pain points are.
I also think that it's important that while this is a proposal in front of us, that we do actually read even just the words that are in front of us, because it doesn't say that these are the prices. The prices say above it from. The nuance of detail not being not important. So anyway, that's the one proposal. So I think I have in here that presents a picture of what these devices are. And my understanding is that this is part of their wider system of either doing it in individual residences or putting a device in, or doing it for a building. But there must be some, which has not as yet been given any further discussion, of where this is centrally managed from. And why I pick up that thread of the conversation is I think a significant part of the reasons for interest in this relate to potentially data moving off-site or not. My own personal preference is that the reason why cloud services and software as a service works is because we're actually not going to be great at looking after computers and servers and systems, and patching them and upgrading them, or leaving that to someone else on the estate. I would much prefer that this sat in in a professional space in a cloud, on a cloud service that is generally does this for probably thousands of other people who do utility billing.
What, the whole privacy issue related to storage of our data off the estate. Theoretically, the data can be maybe accessed and sold on, but who's going to want to know what Graham Linsky's power usage is and when he uses?
Graham, while you might be sensitive about that, the realities of it are that AWS is an approved supplier of services to the South African government. And I know this because I've been part of processes that have identified the ability to use AWS's infrastructure in South Africa to do tenders. In my own world, that's healthcare tenders, IT tenders, but they are an approved supplier to South African government and to CETA. So are they copy compliant in terms of their South African context? Well, you wouldn't be on that list unless you were copy compliant.
I would imagine our face recognition is a far more critical area of storage than how much electricity you're using.
Yeah, but I mean, so the real question that you're asking is the infrastructure, the IT infrastructure that's proposed from Enlight, POPIA compliant at the 100% level, and we know this. The answer to that is yes. Next question. No issue. I mean, and you don't get those sort of compliance certificates without having gone through all of the loopholes.
I mean, Checkers knows everything that you bought. Yes, clicks with your Clicks card. They all know.
Your cell phone, it knows exactly. It knows where I go. I mean, Google, you went to that restaurant on that day at that time.
Well, it's when you got to defend yourself in court. I wasn't there.
So this is just creating some visuals for clarity of understanding. I'm actually going to talk to the next slide and then come back to the pictures. So
why are you looking at? Sorry, Charles. Why are you looking at that? No, it's not Greensun at Longlands. It's RMS metering. They do, but that's metering service only. So they have smart meters that you measure time of usage, all of that for the estate. But that's not, as I understand, it's not a. They don't manage your geysers and the rest of it. It's just a metering system where you then expect that the resident will manage his usage as he should, and if not, then you charge him more. That's what at Longland. So that's a different. So that's why originally my question was, if we're looking are we looking still at the management system where we've seen that people are managing their systems? Do we need the intrusiveness of actually managing the equipment centrally? We just have a very specialized metering system where we meter correctly and charge correctly. That's sort of and previously we were definitely the boat we want to manage because of those extra charges. But yeah, are we still there? That was actually my question. Yeah, part of that question.
Okay. If I can just pick up on what the architecture of the solution is, almost from a recap perspective. The architecture of the solution will put the meters in kiosks. We've got roughly, I think, about 20 kiosks around the estate. That, as I understand from an earlier discussion in the week with Henny, that was the sort of like the preferred formula of utility installations. Because then, if there are problems with meters, then you don't have to get into the homeowner's house to go and deal with a problem of the meter. I mean, that will depend on whether there is enough space on all of the boards in all of the kiosks for this to work. But largely speaking, that's the game plan, is to move metering into the kiosks.
And if there's not enough space, they can put a supplementary little kiosk adjacent.
Yeah,
There's
that's
more.
not unlikely to be an expensive outcome.
The
They need
meter
to
itself, the meter itself is in those kiosks. The display is in the home. Am I correct? Because there was concern about the gases and electromagnetic signals, etc. Now, from what I can gather, speaking to Enlight, the display panel goes in the house, and it emits as much radiation in 1 year as a cell phone uses in a week. So it's extremely low.
But I mean, whether a user wants a display in his house is entirely up to him, because the purpose of the display is only to replicate this, which is no longer needed by the resident, because the billing is coming off the back end anyway. So this is going closer to the formula. So yeah, put in a kiosk. In the kiosk, this has been done at Water's Edge. Those three items there are the 3-phase meters. Those are the actual meters themselves.
Remember, we've got a lot of geckos here.
There must be a proper sealed unit there.
So they are SABS approved meters, and they are on the Cape Town tender. So they have a supply contract with Cape Town for about 35,000 meters a year.
So we don't actually even need the displays.
No.
Apparently, the display just attaches to your incoming supply, so you don't need another cabling system either. But it will help homeowners to actually manage their system, because then you can actually see immediately, what is actually having a huge demand on your system, and you can then.
What is it on a cell phone?
Yeah, you could. Do they have an application to monitor it on cell phone?
No, we didn't.
There is an app. At the moment, all of the app functionality is focused around being able to create a schedule for your users, or for that to be given visibility, and for you to override it subject to there being capacity within Wedderwill.
Yeah, Charles, those meters. So, how does it manage your geyser then? Those are the 3 meters outside in the kiosk that you had a photo of, as before it goes into your house. Is that what you showed?
So the meter goes into your house, and inside your house is a geyser controller attached to your geyser, which talks through the wiring inside from the meter to the geyser controller. I mean, this is stuff that I understand has actually been around for yonks, of being able to send a pulse to a device that's attached to a geyser to say turn off. And every once in a while, what's your temperature?
Okay.
But you can effectively fit those controllers to anything that actually has a high demand. And I cited to you example I've done a number of houses here as an architect, where they put in instant water heaters. We didn't know about electricity going so crazy. That draw 12.5 kilowatts. That's just 3 geysers with it's got a cable like you can't believe. Now, I think it would be prudent to actually control that kind of thing as well as one of the variables.
Sorry, so that's it's basically a switch. It's just either on or off.
Yeah.
It's not a smart switch, but you can set the temperatures or
You can
change
set.
the
No, it is a
temperature.
smart. It is a smart switch. You can set the temperature, and you can get feedback of the temperature in the geyser.
Okay, so it can be done.
If you have this system in your house, could you just switch it off and not use it?
Yes, there'll be an app for that. which will say, okay, this is my schedule, but I don't want hot water. I'm going away on holiday. Just have the geyser on.
The other thing is, I switch off my grid system 9 months of the year. I do not have any connection to it. So my crossover switch, it's got 3 positions. It's got grid, off, and generator. I would imagine that this will not complicate that. We'll still be able to switch ourselves completely off.
Yep. Because it will be looking at the kiosk and saying, are you drawing electricity from the grid? No, no charge. I mean, other than your electric charges, no consumption charges, metering charges. Okay, so.
Oh, and obviously when you're not connected, then it can't speak to your geyser neither. Because it's going through the cable, you were saying, Charles.
Yeah, the cable can be live. Wait a second. Yes, no, that's true. It would not control your geyser if you've actually turned off your electricity supply.
Yeah.
Most people, their PV systems are not connected to their geysers because of the high current draw.
Yeah.
So most, very few, unless you've got a massive inverter and batteries.
So I ask, is managing the geysers enough to bring us below the 50 line, or is there another way if we still, we're managing the geysers and we're still crossing that line, that we can just, manage the more than just the
Okay, so that's a great question. Thanks, Claudia. The context of my answer on that is when before we got into this thing with Enlight, Graham got for us 6 months of data, time of use data from ESCO, and we sucked them up into and Johan and I did a whole lot of massaging and so on to create visibility, and that's where it became completely evident that the draw at a state level was very spiky, and the largest single category that I'm aware of, and as our discussions have become aware of, are the generators of that are standard geyser elements, which are 4 kilowatt elements. So if you're asking the question, is geysers the only contributor and the only problem to this? The answer to that is almost certainly no. Is it the low-hanging fruit of the first thing for us to go after? And then once we've gone after that, well, see if it's solving the problem. That having been said, I've gone with a conversation with Enlight and said, that's not necessarily a good enough answer for the residents of Wedderwill. And I've studied the specs of their meter, and the specs of their meters have the capacity to set a maximum draw at a meter level in a not dissimilar way from the way we get tokens, and then we punch the token in, and then we get a token sent to our meter, which increases the amount of units in our meter. Their meters have a tokening system in them, which allows them to send tokens to the meter, which says the maximum amount of power you're allowed to give for now, and then for however long they may decide, is they put it into their meters to deal with the problem of solving not cutting people off, so that they could set to sort of like 200 watts. In other words, you're not completely cutting them off. Sort of like you're giving them almost nothing. The ability to set that at, say, 3 kilowatts across the estate, to send a token out to everyone's meters and say, for the next hour or two, you're capped at 3 kilowatts, end of story. Divide the usage across the residents of the estate. And if look, some people away, maybe we can make it 3.5 or 4 or whatever.
I did query that within this last week, and they indicated that the system will actually have a way of load limiting. They will give you a warning by the token
Yeah.
method. And if you don't actually reduce your load, they'll give you another warning, and the third warning you get switched off for 30 minutes. So there's a way of limiting.
They switch all completely.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So if you exceeding the kilowatt,
My understanding, Graham, is that they can limit it to 3 kilowatts.
Yeah, but they had 3 stages.
Yeah.
That was the limit, the first limit.
Off completely.
Yeah.
It cuts you off to the above the threshold that you're wanting to consume at.
And if you continue to ignore it,
Yeah.
they'll give you another warning. If you ignore that, then you get switched off for
so
30
then,
minutes.
okay, so if you've got a whole lot of consumers going in your point, you get a warning, so you turn one of them.
Yeah.
You pump or your rest of your chicken.
Yeah, or whatever. So the next part of the chain is that once it goes from the kiosk and the metering and the geyser controllers, that connected to the kiosk is a 3G communicator. And I understand, Graham, you went round with them and
No, he did go around to everyone. I think Steve took him around to test the signal.
yeah. So they did actually do.
Yeah.
So the communicator devices are, I think, on 2 different cellular networks automatically. They have two chips in them to allow them, either it's Vodacom or Telcom or or MTN. So they will have coverage for at least one, and that they've been round to all of them and assessed all of the kiosks.
Unlike our panic button.
Yeah, I'm not wanting to widen the scope of this. And as part of the final leg of the process, so all of the stuff gets commissioned. My meter's actually been left in place at the moment, but then you would read the meter, because once this whole system is set up and it goes live, then you bypass the meter. It gives you visibility of the units that are still in the meter for you to get credited back by the estate. And then that can get taken out and disposed of.
Also, I assume these meters can do also time of consumption and whatever, all that is available if you want.
So explicitly what they do, and this is what I validated with them out of the test, is that they do time of use, supply and consume. So you get essentially 2 sets of meter readings, that which you've consumed, so that it can match that to a price, given the price at that time. The logging data that they use is every 5 minutes. It's currently half an hour, so that looks like a more than good enough answer. And it tracks both what you give in, so that you can be remunerated for it, if that's what we decide to do, to pay people back for their surplus energy, and what you consume. And that's the key principle of time of use metering, is that it's buy and sell. And then it goes up from there up to somewhere in Cape Town, and explicitly the service that Enlight have configured this up to is a service from Amazon called Grafana. Grafana is the utility billing engine system that they sell on to any utilities around the world. So and anywhere north of our size to, sort of like Grafana is used by utilities that have millions of customers.
Charles?
Yeah.
So just coming back to the maximum flow that it can allow, you can set it. Can that be done on a kiosk level, different time zones? Obviously, if you've got a kiosk, that is your time zone for geysers of that period of time, then obviously it will allow a lot more, but outside that period of time to have it lower, can you, is it just general, you can just say, okay, not more than this at all time?
The rules that we choose to put into this actually end up being up to us. They will have some configuration potential costs beyond, we can't just keep making up and inventing rules. But the overall rules that we tell them at setup, that we want to distribute the availability of heating standard geysers across these 77 households equally, then it will choose to take 2-hour slots and 2-hour slots and 2-hour slots to ensure that they do. But the idea continues to also be that, sort of like you've got your family coming round, I want to now override the schedule that has been applied to me. I'll turn it on. If there's a surplus capacity in the state, you can turn it on.
So it's only when it reaches, it's got smart metering in there. Yeah, if the estate capacity reaches the limit, then it will start.
Yeah,
turning it off. Because a lot of guys, I've got geyser smart meters already on the geyser, on all my geysers, and I know there's a couple of other guys already have it. So, but this means this system they'd have to put their one on, I would assume.
I think so. Yes.
Because you need a new element as well that can read the temperature and that whole unit and all of that.
So ideally, what we will be doing here is encouraging all people to go with these geyser controllers, because it can flatten the use across the estate and give us confirmation that the variable usage risk will go away. But I don't think we should be enforcing users to take saying you have to take our geyser timer, because ultimately the maximum, our NMD limit will say, well, if we reach 240 kilowatts, we're going to cap you guys anyway, everyone. Very sort of like.
Yeah.
You can set your own, it's controlled anyway.
And I think we would only apply this to people with standard geyser elements, not people with fancy heat pumps and all these other things, which have.
Yeah, heat pump, and it draws 1200 watts.
Yeah.
Close to 4000.
600 watts.
Yeah, well, then you've got a good one. Yeah. So they're incredibly efficient. In fact, I think that's one thing that you should try and promote, is that residents actually change from geysers to heat pumps. They can keep their old geyser as just a storage vessel and have a heat pump on the system, and it'll save them a fortune.
I hope in giving visibility to our total consumption and energy being such a topical issue, that we can continue to promote and encourage explicitly to which owners. It would be great if you could, and then be able to market that as we are a more eco-friendly estate. And then there will need to be there will be a direct sort of a homeowner's piece of it, which allows them to get their monthly downloads for their bills. It will take away the needing the this whole sort of issuing of prepaid tokens and the rest of it. That you just get a download once a month of all of people's accounts, and hopefully just upload them into Zero or apply them to people's accounts, which will be possible. Significantly reduce the impact on Geraldine. Plus, of course, being able to access interim billings and to deal with the linking and unlinking of meters as there ends up being maintenance. This bit of it, I'm going to see if I can.
And so obviously you can do it in stages. You can just do the whole metering first, and you can do the management of the geysers if you want to at the later stage, or everything at once. It's up to us or up to an individual household, depending on what the cost structures are. Because personally, I'm coming back to the place where I think it would be great to have the overall reduction in load for the state, and that's then applied to everyone, where we don't have to go now and invade everybody's houses to put in meters in their houses, and that additional cost, because that can be added later on if we see that the other system doesn't work. Because without it, it's already working. That was my first point of physically we've seen that people are managing it, and people do have, as I said, lots of people do have already geezer-wise stuff that actually manage the geezers. You must just get it scheduled onto the right schedules. But this can be done, and then we don't have to do a whole thing now. And we can then, if they send, okay, there is an issue, we are breaching again. They are definitely, we need to do a lot more. Then so, okay, now everybody must now put the geyser controllers in, or something like that. But we haven't. I mean, our point is our excess tariff charge has been very minimal this winter, and we had some serious issues.
Trying to log into the live system, which I did with Henny earlier on during the week. But this is the sort of data that it gathers of your total usage at a kilowatt level, geyser temperatures, and then tracks that into an aggregated billing summarized at the end of the month. Okay, let's go back to the agenda and see where we are. Okay, so what I tried to do with this stuff, say, well, what does it do? That I think, I mean, look, there should be no misconceptions about this, that it is significantly more money than retaining our prepaid metering system. So, might as well.
If you elect not to have a geyser controller, and you take away the 20% contingency, because now you've got a fixed price on these items, if we do that, but all that works out to 3,800 rand on a single.
Yeah, and 6,800 on a three-phase, and importantly, 95 rand a month, or around a month.
Why did that go up from 65?
They said that they did this, and I couldn't understand. I kept quiet at the time. I couldn't understand why it was 65, given that most of when I looked on the market for prices around us were 200 or 300, and so keep quiet. And then they come back now with 95, and so they've actually done the sums. I'm not so overly surprised at it, and the answer that they gave me was, well, that was just a thumbs up number. And but what I have got agreement from them in writing is that if we go in at 95, that increases annually will be capped to CPI. Because, I mean, yeah, what happens is you say, okay, because I mean, by the time you go sort of like 100 rand per household per month, that's 10,000 rand across the estate a month. You know, so it is at an extra cost to mitigate the risks of the penalty charges and to set us up for time of use billing. But I've tried to go through and say, well, yeah, okay, you've got to have the numbers in mind because it is costing more money.
Charles, now at this point in time, we pay an availability of around 200 rand a month. We've paid for the unit charge of 2.50 a kilowatt hour, which is actually well below the City of Cape Town, which I think is about 3.50.
Yeah.
With this system, we could actually charge, as the City of Cape Town does, if you exceed the consumption of 600 kilowatts hours a month, they put you onto a higher tariff. We could do lots of different things we wanted to. Yeah. And then the third thing is what we are still paying is the capacity charge. The demand charge is now being included in the unit charge, but we're still paying the capacity charge. Would that fall away? Do you think we could work towards that?
Provided it makes the penalty charge risk that we built into the thing go away, then we would be able to make that go away. And my mindset on that is that we need to almost be able to promise to the residents that that will go away. Because that was one of the huge ingredients that sort of took us down this route, was this idea that we could suddenly end up with a couple of bills for £2,000 a month for a couple of winter months as an unwelcome surprise. Is actually not okay.
We've got to put it through a year trial because we've never done an audit on kilowatt hours purchased as opposed to those sold to the homeowners. It's never, and when we did it, reconciled, it was over 20% differential that we could unaccounted for.
Yeah.
With this thing, you'll be able to account for absolutely every single kilowatt hour.
So I've tried to go through, what does this do essentially different? It does give us equitable billing. Sure. Okay. So it certainly gives us equitable billing, and I almost think as a that's a duty that we have in our relationship with our residents. So they're sort of like playing and managing the system and cross-subsidizing, and that worked okay while electricity was cheap, but it's not anymore. It definitely gives us time of use billing, which for me is a strategic issue for the future. It takes away the admin of doing electricity coupons. That goes away, and therefore makes Geraldine's process of sort of get a download from the system, upload into the accounting system a whole lot simpler. Yes, that's an important piece, is that this is an end to the penalty charges, and I think we can guarantee that. We do get, which for me is also an important piece, we will get what amount. I think we're now flying blind a little bit with this coal consumption piece, and to have real-time visibility of what's happening is what will allow us to put this under control, both at a estate level, and if we need to, there are certain residents that are, for example, they've got instant water heaters, then they need to be asked, this is actually not okay.
The potential child that we qualify, providing that one on consumption.
No, it's saying that we have a capacity above which, if someone, so the economists, and I come from some economics background, call this the free rider problem. It's basically the same as congestion. If you are the extra car that goes into the city, you add a congestion implication to every other user who uses the system. And we have a free rider problem that people who add the marginal usage that takes us over the threshold create a cost for everyone else.
Those people that know that.
Yeah, but the token system of saying we will issue tokens to all of the meters unilaterally to everyone and cap you because we are too close to our threshold at 3 kilowatts for the next hour. End of story. We have to do that. Otherwise, one person putting on their geyser is going to result in everyone getting £1,000 or whatever it is charged, and that's not okay.
That's a qualification.
It's more infinity charge.
We're not actually exposed to penalty charges directly at this point in time. We were last year because that penalty charge was actually in the demand charge, which we all pay equally. But at this point in time, that's now absorbed in the unit charge.
Yeah.
So we don't
So
see
the unit charge will come down
we can
because we won't have to build this into the unit charge.
Yeah. So the unit charge can be adjusted to whatever revenue stream you require. So if we find we over recovering, it can actually come down. Or
Mhm. Any? Just want to, Charles, just a question. If what happens if your access is only 3 kilowatts and you switch on and there's 2 geysers going? I mean, what physically happens at the back? Will the geysers just die? Will they just work halfway? Is it not damaging the equipment? That's my question. Isn't there a risk of that we're gonna break people?
Can I ask those who have actual electrical engineering to answer this question?
Now, I was asking Henny.
it will do it to a motor.
A motor will
be a problem.
Motor will be issue, but it is a load now.
Yeah.
He's an element, no.
No.
But you will get warning.
Yeah, you get a couple of warnings.
Mm. Now, I'm just the question is, okay, so motor the geyser will just not enough and it won't heat up. That basically it'll just sort of trickle. But a motor, will it be damaging for it if let's say your washing machine goes on at that point, and it's throttled? Then will there be damages? I mean, what's the situation with that?
Yeah, you could come up.
Do consumer things have any control mechanisms in them? You know, like a dishwasher or a washing machine. That if the power goes off or is reduced. I mean, we all know that there are some quality thresholds in terms of the frequency, the voltage, and the ampage that electricity is supposed to be delivered at. But the reality of the delivery of that is probably a little bit more variable than we would like.
Usually when you run under voltage, obviously some motors has what they call a Cleason's device, which is a thermistor which will switch it off to prevent it from overheating.
And in this instance, it's not going to be voltage that will be reduced. It's your amperage.
Yeah.
Would be under control. So what happens if you reduce the amperage? There's just not enough to actually even start the motor. Yeah, it's not going to burn out.
So the initial, what I'm hearing, Kevin, from this is that the throttling of the ampage is not expected to be a problem for motors, but we don't actually know the answer.
Okay, maybe I was just get it because we don't want to sit with claims against the homeowners from people because you're throttling. But if they are doing it, then obviously they can just give us a quick answer. Okay, thanks.
Okay. So yes, we get an app to show that what our grid consumption is, and to show our geyser temperatures, and to show the schedule that we're on for our geysers, so that if we want to override it, we can. Now this piece is probably for me one of the more interesting threads of this. Oh, let me make this a little bit bigger. So what I decided to do, coming from some of the economic background that I came from, an investment background that I come from, I thought we should compare this as an investment decision. And I'll try and lay out the cash flows as best we understand them. When you lay out cash flows in an economic model, you make assumptions about the future. It's a very important qualification there, that you are making assumptions about the future. In making the assumptions, all that I have done is use the knowledge that we have at this point in time about our history and the cost that we have evidence of the two different systems. What this says to me is that looking at the costs that will be avoided, at the variable costs that we have visibility from, variable penalty costs that are built into our demand charges now, is that using that and the penalty charges from 2023 and the additional costs of doing this, say across the estate, it is probably 600,000 or 700,000 rand, and that largely comes up as a once-off cost, and then you have the monthly cost of there or thereabouts 10 grand a month for the monitoring and managing and the back-end billing system. And then the others, the Syntel prepaid costs will go away. But I've tried to say, well, I'll do the best I can with those numbers that I have and try and lay them out as cash flows over a 10-year period, just raising the caveat of assumptions. I don't know what the future actually looks like. But what it says to me is that this would break even in year 4 of the money we put in. In other words, we will be cash flow positive. And as an investment decision, what it looks to me like is a cash flow positive decision in today's real term money terms of about 1.5 million positives. So not only do we get what we want, it is a smart investment decision in terms of the value that we will forecast getting from. Down to the lowest common denominator of the money, this does actually make sense. I mean, also, sort of like in the context of Wedderwill estate, the good about it is sort of like 6 or 10 grand in the bigger scheme of things inside Wedderwill as a one-off to strategically move us to time of use billing. That big, should that be that big a deal? I don't think so, particularly because it sets us up for the future as well. But I thought I should share that with you, that this is actually a financially positive thing for us to do. Okay, the last piece is that
Sorry, Charles, just on that point, I think we've seen on the group that there's some residents saying that it's part of your supply. So homeowners should supply the metering and whatever. But I assume the quick answer is that, I mean, it can be done by the homeowners, but there will be a special levy to cover it if need be. That's sort of the counter or for that discussion. I don't know what the views are around the table.
So what I have recommended in the motivation is that we give a, let's dig that up. Is that we essentially put a once-off charge onto to people's accounts. So we're getting the units at essentially trade price because we're getting them directly from Enlight to cover the costs plus a contingency fund, which we may end up giving back to people. Plus the installation fund.
Why do we need the contingency if we've got a fixed price?
Yeah, I've done a lot of projects, Graham, as have you.
No, I have too, but not with 20% contingency. And the problem is, we've always had contingent costs actually added to our special levies. And we never actually see anything that is not expended.
Well, that also depends, Graham, on, so if I was managing this as a project, I would absolutely want some contingency.
Yeah, no, but
I mean, you as an architect ought to know that
100 million rand projects I've had, but we've had a 5% contingency, and that's what unknown factors. If you've got fixed factors on the supply of the hardware, there are no unknowns there.
And we should get a tender out for this.
The installation is different, I admit.
Now, covering the whole of the supply of the hardware and the installation of the equipment and any other unwelcome surprises.
We have
Okay, we could set the number at 10%, but at a principal level, I believe there should be a contingency fund to deal with unwelcome surprises at a project level.
And you can't always anticipate and not every installation is going to be the same. Believe you me, you're going to have some very complicated ones. You're going to have some very simple ones.
And there will no doubt be some noise to go with that. Anyway, so I mean, basically, what I'm suggesting, the proposal that goes to the homeowners association is that charges applied for if you have a single phase meter that requires replacement or a three phase, and depending on whether it's single or three phase, depending on that is then either I think it's about £6,000 or £10,000, and that gets charged as a once-off, and this gets rolled out as soon as we can agree the electrical contractor. And Henny and I have worked through a tender to go to, I think it's about 5 of the electricians who we've used. We can review that list as a matter of urgency, with a view to actually getting something out immediately beyond the next board meeting, and getting the responses hopefully within a week or two, and then contracting it during the first 2 weeks of October. The meters that have to be replaced have to be replaced with, I think it's the 24th of November.
Yeah, but you will be able to load up till the 24th. So if you load 2 months worth of, or 6 months worth of electricity on the thing, not that they're going to switch off.
Oh, you can load them. Okay,
Well,
so that's an
Yeah,
important
so that's,
contingency matter.
but Charles, the 3 variables. When you want single phase, 3 phase. And then the third variable, because there are so many different permutations, are the diesel controllers. Some will have none, some will have 5. So try and get that as extracted as an isolate that number. Because I don't think you've done an audit of who's got what in their house, and you don't want to at this stage, but you need to have an idea when the work is implemented. If you've got a massive house like this new big thing here, you might have 10 living things he needs in that thing. So a one size fits all for that third item. It should be based on the number of installations you have, surely. Yeah.
That sounds like a completely common sense method that will come out of we select an electrical contractor to do the work. There will come essentially a site inspection per house, and we'll get the single phase or 3 phase number of diesel controllers formalized as part of that process. The final charge will be, but as a heads up level, single phase with the diesel controller will be £6,000, £10,000 for 3 phase with the diesel controller.
And that's the last part is optional as well, as we discussed. I mean, not everybody have to.
Don't have to.
Yeah.
But we will strongly encourage people. And to be fair about it, I mean, while we need to allow for unique individuals, my own sense is many people are actually cooperative, and the likelihood is that probably about 80% of the people say, yeah, this is a good idea. You can see the common wisdom of the common sense of it, although there will obviously be others who we must ensure that it doesn't become any shaming or naming attached to it, but we want to deeply encourage the right behaviour.
What's going to happen for people that are overseas for long periods of time and they're not here when the installation gets done or needs to be done?
That's actually a good question, and good that we surface it now. In the first instance, because the installation is in kiosks, the only thing that may need to be done is, so what can happen is you can put the meters in the kiosk and leave it running in series through the time of use metering and through the prepaid metering until such time as they're back, and the time of use metering, sorry, the prepaid meter can be bypassed and then taken out. So that's a good thought. Thanks.
Why be able to do that maybe indefinitely, that you don't go onto the system, or do you have to go onto the system as a homeowner?
Well, the prepay would fall away completely. You won't be able to recharge your meter.
So you won't be able to do that. So we will just rely on yourself, basically. If you don't join in.
You have to. I don't think there's any choice. You have to be. You're not going to otherwise.
Well, I think that ultimately, Antoinette, that comes back to the free rider problem. Is that, well, can we do you want to stay completely off this system? Well, what happens if we go over 250 kilowatts and we suddenly get a 50,000 rand bill?
But I'm not using any electricity.
If you're not using any electricity, if you want to go off grid,
Yes.
um,
I'm just asking her the question whether it would be possible, because she is off grid. I am actually.
But then your successor in title, when you decide for whatever, next year, oops, now you want it, and there's been no contribution to the fiscus.
I know what to.
So there's got to be a balancing act.
Yeah.
You know, there's been a lot of discussion about this availability charge.
But if you don't join now, you might want to do
You
it
might want it
later,
at a later stage.
then it could be perhaps.
The availability is a nominal figure. So everyone's just got to bite on the bullet, pay the 110 rand a month for Enlight if you want to use it.
I changed from 3 phase to 1 phase.
Yeah. Your inverter is the problem.
so
If it's a single phase inverter, as Kevin said, it might actually be linked just to one phase on the three phase. But if it's a 3-phase inverter, you've got a problem.
No, thank you, I'm happy to do that.
So, in preparing an earlier draft of this, I think that there should be an encouragement of reducing energy across the estate because of where things are. So, encouraging people to take up the option of changing from 3-phase to single-phase. But you know, I've got a 3-phase inverter. You know, sort of like 50 grand inverter. No, I don't think that's an option that I want to take up. So.
No, nothing.
Okay.
So Charles, the point is the compulsory would be, I mean, the first two parts of the installation and will be compulsory because that has to be, you can't, I mean, there's no way that people can opt out of the metering system or not. I mean, just everybody will have to do that. Because some people will say my current meter system is still, I don't have the one that needs to be replaced. I got the one with alphabet letters, whatever. Is it possible? I want to continue on that. I mean, we just need to make it very clear. This will replace that token, and that system is not going to be.
Well,
what?
As I say, Johan, I mean, in Antoinette's case, if you've gone completely off grid and you're not actually using the estate's electricity, I mean, you still get charged an availability usage. You don't need metering because you're not doing any consumption, and you might do it later.
Right.
For those who are on prepay, they then get exposed as a narrow pool to the penalty charges, and they would need to get distributed to those users who have said, no, we don't want this. And that could be very expensive.
Because the question is, could one make it compulsory? The first part of the meeting, because we're going on to a new system. If you want electricity, that's what you need. That's what you will have to get.
I think you start having a dual system is the recipe for disaster.
Cannot work.
No.
We need to manage all of it.
It has to be everybody. I agree. The geyser control unit is optional, but the first part of it must be compulsory.
Yeah. I mean, I like that answer. And if we are, if there is a consensus around that as an answer that this is not optional, this is, if you want grid electricity from Wedderwill, this is the metering solution the estate is adopting. End of story.
Yeah. Because then we don't, the point is we don't want that other, I don't know if you pay fees for that other system. Or whatever. Yeah.
Well, if we go back to the agenda.
And I think in terms of the user control, many of the people who've got solar geysers, initially, there was a setting, but now it's changed, and they're unaware of what it was or so on. It can be changed. We've changed our setting as well, so that the geyser switches on, when because we've got solar panels now. So the geyser will switch on when the solar panels are producing, and it doesn't switch on at the times when it will impact on the maximum demand at night time, for instance. Whereas previously it switched on at night time so that there would be hot water in the morning. Yeah.
Right. Well, I hope people feel equipped to vote, because the next bit is around people voting for which metering system they would like to recommend for the board for the next board meeting on Friday next week.
Voting down.
Well, we as a consensus, and understanding that the purpose of this electrical subcommittee was to draw together people who had the interest and the expertise to meaningfully contribute on behalf of, broadly speaking, the residents. I think that, well, I hope that we've laid out a sufficiently reasonable set of content for which people to make their vote decision and see whether we're at the consensus. So if we can sort of like walk around the room. So Julian, your thoughts?
No, I'm voting.
Okay, so I'm voting, picking this up for the record, that Julian is voting in favour of the Enlight solution as proposed.
Right. Yeah.
The difficult one for me, because I don't want either or neither.
But in the end of the day, thank you, Charles. I think I will have a sense that this might be the best solution for the I think it is
I do too, because I think the horizon is very tangible, and we need the flexibility in our costing here and our metering. We need that.
Yeah, I also think in terms of, as you said, there is a variable looking into the future. And looking into the future, what we know, Eskom is being privatized. They are going to be breaking up, and the Western Cape are trying to, and they are doing IPPs, independent power producers. So they are out there also really to make Eskom redundant, and they are very much the possibility that, they're going to take over here in the Western Cape in terms of electrical supply. We may become City of Cape Town. We may not remain Eskom. So we need to have something that is flexible.
I just blow up that controller in a kiosk, but
The meeting. I think I got a big picture of the. Those are 3 single phase meters, because those are the ones that they got.
These ones here.
Those 3.
Okay.
That goes on the board.
That goes on the board inside the kiosk. No, in the kiosk.
Oh, in the kiosk.
Is that actually in the kiosk?
In the kiosk.
But these ones on the side, is that contactors?
These are
or
breakers.
Is that breakers as well?
But on your supply, or was it on the general supply, those breakers?
Those are on the general supply.
Okay, just for the
That's-
three
So
phases.
this explicitly is the addition, these three,
That little number.
and a communicator device that is connected to that sits on top of the kiosk, which if needed will have an aerial ladder, but that's it.
Is this a breaker, you say?
These are breakers that were there before.
Looks more like a contactor.
Well, that I know is what was added.
Is it? Okay.
So-
It's fine.
So will this then be standing next to the little electrical box where it comes into a precinct next to wherever, because there's a central wherever that comes in, I would assume.
So the picture that you're seeing is inside a kiosk and points to the can you see my cursor coming through?
Yeah, those three that so
No
that
problem.
three must be added for each house.
Three of those must be added for a three-phase meter, and
Per
one
house.
added for a single-phase meter per house.
Per house.
And
Yeah.
per house, one of these smart grid controllers, which are part of what makes the whole system work together.
So do we think it's one of these kiosks per precinct kind of thing, or is it three
Yeah.
or four?
So these are my thoughts are that you'd probably get about 4 houses per kiosk where you'd put those in. And as Graham mentioned, and that's part of the contingency fund because there's no pricing to be done. If we need extra kiosk space to put one up.
Okay.
I'm in favor. I just think if we're not going to use technology to make our lives simpler, we're foolish. And I think it's minimal invasion of privacy. There's other theories on that, but I think we have a duty to the homeowners to look towards the best solution, and this to me is the best solution.
With you saying it doesn't suit you and your household, you have those meters installed now. What would happen, for instance, if you sold your house without the system used? Then
That's why I have to put the question forward, because that would create a problem.
yes, because then surely the homeowners is going to say, you're not going to ratify the sale until the meter is installed.
Yes, yes.
So
No,
either you do it now
or whatever,
you do it with yourself.
but it needs to be in place.
Yeah.
Because the next person looking into the property might not be as electricity conscious or spares as myself.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's why I just put the question forward, because it just might sense, if this is what's going to happen, it must happen to everybody.
Yeah, it's just an addition to that comment.
Yes, yeah.
No, prices, the electricity prices go up. Would this be an added argument in favor of this? Or would that remain neutral?
So what should change going forward with this is that we can take out the penalty capacity charge that is currently in the unit charge, and that going forward is the long-term benefit in unit costs of electricity, and the additional cost is call it 100 rand a month for the back end billing system and access to the geyser controllers.
You should be have those just in the half that a system will complete as well what's going on. Would that be located where the transmission will be taken on?
Probably. I would imagine it would go there. I'm sure it's got a link to your supply, incoming supply, that panel that you have in the house. I would imagine it's got it, because that is how its functionality is through, it's a wired connection.
So the display unit is sort of like something about this size from what I've seen from that picture. And there would probably need to be some tidying up of where the existing meters are.
The big
Make
hole.
that-
Just blank.
yeah, blanket off to make it look sensible.
But
Although the consumption will be visible on an app on your phone, should you need that route.
But I think what Juliet's asking is, are you charged that it changed as a result of this? I think the proof will be in the pudding when we do an audit after 12 months of use to see whether our unit charge is over recovering or under recovering what we're paying ESCOM for our electricity. So it may well be that we can actually bring the thing down, our unit charge down.
Even feeding into the system maybe later.
Yeah.
So in constructing this whole sort of like NPV analysis logic, what I've tried to do is to characterize when does it become cash flow positive, and at an investment decision, it looks like it's worth, even though it costs you sort of like maybe costs you 10 grand now, in time over the expected 10 years, it should have about a 20 grand positive upside to it.
Break even in about 4 or 5 years, you said.
10.
Break even.
Yeah, no, so it breaks even after 4 years. It's beyond that, it's all positive. Right, and I mean, I've got involved. I've invested my time and energy because I think that I believed for a long time that regardless of the how can I put it, it's the strategic issue of moving to time of use billing just makes so much sense to me, and I think the tools to not fly blind and to get caught blind with these charges is where we need to go to. And if it picks up that, then there are a whole lot of other side benefits that come with it. So, where I get to this, and you're the last person to vote.
Yes. No, I'm in favor, as we discussed, compulsory of the metering itself with the user control units, depending what you have on site, but that's optional for people, because if you don't manage it, then you will get it will be throttled. The one thing is just in my mind is, how do you penalize guys that, because you're going to throttle everyone in the state, or you're going to, okay, but yeah, you're going to send a message to the individual who's got a problem, then you throttle everyone. I mean, that's how the system works, I understand.
Yeah, if we're reaching the cap aggregated across the estate,
Yeah,
I can choose at that moment in time which users are trying to isolate for what they're doing in their house and saying, I mean, and from, I think, from what you and I have seen, this looks like it has become most prevalent straight after the long outages when the batteries want to charge and
users are cold.
people want to turn themselves on and everyone wants to shower.
Yeah. So that
Against throttle. It will be for a short period.
Yeah.
Everybody will be listening.
No more than is reasonable to keep us below our threshold.
my point is, if we get to that and we see it lots of times happening, then we can enforce the second part if people are not managing, or if because we will be able to pick up who's using a lot at that point in time. The system will provide it to you. So then you can either have a discussion or then say, okay, now it's become compulsory, the third portion, as we talked about.
And we will have the data and visibility both at an estate level and at the household level to say, well, where's the problem?
Yeah.
So if it's able to go back, say you have to throttle Could you go back to the individual houses and see which house was contributing at that
Yes.
point?
Yes.
The Lindsay's again.
No. Put on his jacuzzi.
Okay, good. All right, Charles, I just want to thank you. You've done a hell of a lot of work here, and you've spent a lot of time and for the comprehensiveness of the presentation and the information and stuff that you've provided for. It's been a big job, and it's well appreciated. I must just confirm that.
Thanks, Jan. Much appreciated you saying that.
And we wish you well in getting this through the board.
Well, we have 3 board members, yeah, so it's not just me.
But if there is still reluctance, surely it's got to go to an SGM in any of it.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I think this is an excellent document, but it's too long for the general populace to read everything. So an executive summary, I'm sure you will do that.
Well,
Would actually put their mind at
so
rest.
you know that Linda's doing this bit on comms. The reason for this,
That's it.
That's
that's what I said to Frick, and he said, "Yeah, I get it. That makes sense."
And if they want more detail, then they go to your document.
Yeah. And to be fair about it, they'll be shared the link to this session, and saying if you really want to listen through the detail of it, it's all available. Nothing to hide.
Excellent. Thank you.
doing it the right way.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, then, Johan, thanks very much. We're going to wrap things up.
Thanks,
Now
guys.
to the objective of the meeting, which is a consensus recommendation to our residents, having formed as a special interest group. Cheers, then.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks for your input.
No, it's a good demonstration